All right, everyone, the race is well and truly on. Right now, artificial intelligence and human rights are colliding head-on. So look, the question isn't if we should regulate AI anymore, it's how. We are in the thick of it, trying to build the guardrails for a future that's coming at us way faster than anyone thought possible.
Okay, so take a look at this. This chart basically maps out the path of AI development. You see, it goes from simple logic all the way to the generative AI we're all playing with now. But what I really want you to look at is that last point on the right, singularity. What is that? Well, it's this theoretical moment where AI gets so smart it just blows past human intelligence, maybe even setting off this, an uncontrollable chain reaction of technological growth. So think about that. When the roadmap for a technology literally points to a destination we can't even comprehend, how on earth do you prepare for that? You can see why this is keeping a lot of people in government up at night.
So, to really wrap our heads around that future, we've got to look under the hood. We need to understand the physical engine that's pushing us there so incredibly fast. This isn't just about software and code, right? It's about the actual physical hardware that makes any of this possible.
And really, it all comes down to two basic building blocks: transistors and chips. The easiest way to think about a transistor is just as a tiny, tiny switch. It can be on or it can be off, a 1 or a 0. A microchip, well, that's just a sliver of silicon with literally billions of these little switches crammed onto it. And all of them are flipping on and off together to do mind-bogglingly complex math at incredible speeds.
Now, this process of cramming more and more switches onto a smaller space isn't random. It's actually been following a surprisingly predictable rule for, more than half a century now. It's called Moore's Law. Gordon Moore, one of the guys who started Intel, he just noticed something back in 1965. He saw that the number of transistors who could fit onto a chip was doubling, almost like clockwork, every 2 years or so.
And this graph, this shows you what that looks like in the real world. I mean, just look at that curve. It's not a nice, gentle slope, is it? It's a rocket ship going almost straight up. We're talking about going from a few thousand transistors back in the 70s to billions on a single chip today. And let's be clear, this isn't even about writing smarter code, not yet anyway. This is pure, raw, computational horsepower. This is the supercharged engine that's fueling the entire AI revolution.
Okay, so what does this all mean? The key takeaway here is that Moore's Law creates this kind of triple threat. First, performance just goes through the roof. Second, the price for all that power just collapses. And third, all the components get smaller and smaller. You put those three things together, and you've got the perfect recipe, the perfect storm for a technology like AI to just erupt out of the lab and into everything we do.
All right, so we've got this insane hardware engine just humming away, getting more powerful by the day. So with that in mind, let's switch gears and look at the software side of things, the actual intelligence part of AI, and see how it has evolved. So you can really think of AI's development as coming in these big waves. Back in the 60s, it was all about mathematical logic, very rigid. Then in the 80s, we got AI that could handle probability, but only for very specific, narrow tasks. The big change came around the 2010s with deep learning. That's the stuff that's behind so much of what we use today. And now we're in the middle of the fourth wave, generative AI, and that's pushing us ever closer to that singularity idea we talked about.
And this gets us to the absolute heart of the problem, the reason we're even having this discussion about regulation. So what happens? What happens when you smash together this unstoppable exponential hardware growth with software that's also getting smarter at an incredible rate? Well, what you get is a technology that's moving so fast, our society, our laws, just can't keep up. We can barely understand it, let alone figure out how to control it.
And that's exactly why there's this global mad dash to write the rulebook. It's a race. And in that race, one major player has jumped out ahead, basically trying to become the world's referee for AI. And that's the European Union.
Their big answer is something called the EU AI Act. It's a really ambitious piece of legislation that's trying to build a whole legal system for AI from scratch. The core idea is actually pretty straightforward. Let's categorize AI systems based on how risky they are. How much of a threat do they pose to our health, our safety, and our basic human rights?
Now, I know what you're thinking. The first thing everyone says is, oh, all this regulation is just going to kill innovation, right? But it might not be that simple. There's a legal scholar, Anu Bradford, who points out that maybe Europe's innovation struggles have deeper, more structural causes. We can't just point the finger at the regulations and call it a day.
And this is all part of a bigger strategy from the EU, something people call the Brussels effect. It's pretty clever, actually.
The EU is such a huge market, right? So they create these really strict rules. And if you're a global company and you want to sell your stuff in Europe, you have no choice but to follow their rules. And what happens over time? Well, those strict EU rules just become the default standard for the entire world. That's exactly what they're hoping will happen with the AI Act.
But look, the EU's big top-down approach, it's not the only way to do this. There are other ideas out there. So let's shift our focus to another major tech player that's trying something pretty different: Taiwan.
What Taiwan is building is a more flexible, kind of layered model. Think of it in 3 tiers. At the very top, you have these big, broad principles, the why. Then you have a core AI law, kind of like the EU's. But here's the crucial difference, the third layer. This is where they create specific, tailored rules for different industries. Because let's be honest, the risks of AI in medicine are totally different from the risks of AI in, say, social media, right?
So what we're left with are 2 really different philosophies, 2 completely different models. And both of them are trying to get their arms around the exact same incredibly powerful technology, a technology that is, no question, going to shape all of our futures.
And when you have different philosophies like this, you're going to get tension. Of course you are. From the EU's perspective, their AI Act is essential for making sure AI is safe and trustworthy. But from the outside, say from the US perspective, it can look a lot more like a trade barrier, like they're just trying to protect their own market and using safety as an excuse.
This table here really breaks it down nicely. You've got the EU's approach, it's comprehensive, it's based on risk, and its main goal is to set the global standard for trust and safety. Then you have Taiwan's model. It's layered, it's more flexible, and it's all about trying to find that sweet spot, that balance between letting innovation run wild and still having good governance.
But here's the thing to remember. While all these governments and lawmakers are debating and drafting and redrafting these rules, that engine we talked about at the beginning, Moore's Law, it's still running. It doesn't stop. Underneath all this political debate, the actual raw power of our computers is still doubling every 2 years, like clockwork, relentlessly.
And that leaves us with the central conflict of our time, really. You have Moore's Law, which says technology grows exponentially on that steep upward curve. But our laws, our political systems, they're designed to move slowly, deliberately, on a straight, linear path. So the real race isn't about the EU versus Taiwan. The real race is between the speed of technology and the speed of law. And frankly, that's a race we absolutely cannot afford to lose.